What if I told you that right now, in this exact moment, you are slowly becoming someone you don't want to be? Not because you're lazy, not because you're stupid, not because you don't care, but because nobody ever taught you this one thing. The thing that separates people who live incredible lives from people who stay stuck forever. The people winning right now, they're not smarter than you. They don't work 20 times harder than you. They just know something you don't yet. And by the end of this video, you will know it too. This is Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the most life-changing books ever written. And I'm going to break it down in a way that actually hits different. No boring summaries. No textbook stuff. Just raw, honest, practical lessons that will change how you see yourself and your future. Stay with me, because if you leave early, you might miss the one idea that rewires everything. Let's get into it. Introduction, my story. So before we jump into the lessons, let me tell you about the man who wrote this book. Because his story, it's the kind of story that makes you stop scrolling and actually pay attention. James Clear was just a sophomore in high school. Normal kid. Played baseball. Had dreams. And then one day, a baseball bat slipped out of a teammate's hands and flew right into James's face. Full swing. Direct hit. Between the eyes. He collapsed. His nose was crushed into a U shape. His skull fractured in multiple places. His eye sockets shattered. He stopped breathing. He was airlifted to a hospital in Cincinnati. Doctors put him into a medically induced coma just to keep him alive. His parents sat in that hospital not knowing if their son would ever wake up. When James finally opened his eyes, he couldn't smell. His eye was literally bulging out of its socket. He had double vision for weeks. It took 8 months before he could even drive a car again. And here's the painful part. When he finally recovered and went back to baseball, he got cut from the varsity team. Him, the kid who had been playing since age 4. Cut. He sat in his car and cried. So how does a guy go from that? A brain injury, a shattered body, a crushed dream, to being named the top male athlete at his university? To being listed on ESPN's academic All-America team? To writing one of the best-selling books of all time? Not through one massive breakthrough. Not through some magical moment of motivation. Through tiny habits. Stacked day after day after day. James said it himself. There was no defining moment. There were many. It was a gradual evolution, a long series of small wins and tiny breakthroughs. And that's exactly what this book is about. Now let's get into the lessons. The fundamentals. Why tiny changes make a big difference. Lesson 1. The surprising power of atomic habits. Let me ask you something real quick. If you got 1% better every single day for 1 year, just 1%, how much better would you be by the end of the year? Twice as good. 3 times? The math says 37 times better. 37 times. That's insane. And here's the flip side. If you get 1% worse every day for a year, you drop down to almost nothing. Nearly zero. The same math that builds empires destroys them too. James talks about the British cycling team to explain this. For over 100 years, British cyclists were complete failures. They hadn't won a single Tour de France. Top bike companies refused to even sell them equipment because they were embarrassed to be associated with such losers. Then in 2003, a coach named Dave Brailsford took over. And his strategy was simple, almost laughably simple. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. Find every tiny thing that goes into cycling and improve each one by just 1%. They tested different massage gels. They improved the riders' sleeping pillows. They painted the inside of the team truck white so they could spot tiny bits of dust on the bikes. 1% here, 1% there. 5 years later, British cyclists dominated the 2008 Olympics, winning 60% of all available gold medals. Then they won the Tour de France 5 times in 6 years. 1% changes compounded over time. But here's the catch that most people miss. The changes don't feel like anything at first. You go to the gym for a week and you look in the mirror and see nothing. You start eating better and the scale doesn't move. You study harder and your grades don't jump overnight. James has this beautiful image for this. Imagine an ice cube sitting on a table in a cold room. The temperature slowly rises. 25 degrees. 26. 27. Nothing happens. 28. 29. 30. 31 degrees. Still, the ice cube just sits there. Then 32 degrees. The ice starts to melt. 1 degree. Same as all the others before it. But now everything changes. This is what James calls the plateau of latent potential. All your work is being stored. Your habits are building underground, like roots. And one day, you break through, and everyone around you calls it an overnight success. They didn't see the roots. But here's the question you really need to sit with. What direction are your daily habits pointing you right now? You don't have to be crushing it today. But are your habits moving you toward the person you want to be, or away from them? Your outcomes are just a lagging measure of your habits. Your grades are a lagging measure of your study habits. Your friendships are a lagging measure of how you treat people. Your body is a lagging measure of what you eat and how you move. You get what you repeat. Lesson 2. How your habits shape your identity, and vice versa. Okay, this is where things get really real. And honestly, this lesson changed how I think about myself forever. Most people try to change their habits the wrong way. They focus on the outcome. I want to lose weight. I want to get good grades. I want to make money. And they fail, over and over. Not because they're weak, but because they're starting from the wrong place. James says there are 3 layers of change. Like an onion. The outermost layer is outcomes, what you want to achieve. The middle layer is processes, what you do. The deepest layer, the core, is identity, who you believe you are. Most people try to change from the outside in. They set a goal, create a plan, and hope motivation kicks in. The people who actually change, they go from the inside out. They start with identity. Here's the example that hits hardest. Imagine 2 people trying to quit smoking. Someone offers them both a cigarette. Person 1 says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Person 2 says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Spot the difference? Person 1 still sees themselves as a smoker trying to resist. Every day is a battle. Person 2 has changed who they are. Smoking doesn't belong in their identity anymore. The battle is over before it starts. This is the big idea. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you go to the gym, even once, you cast a vote that says, "I am someone who works out." When you read a book, you vote for, "I am a reader." When you keep your word, you vote for, "I am someone who can be trusted." You don't need a perfect record. You just need to win the majority of the votes. Think about this student I want you to imagine. Call him Arjun. He wants to do well in school, but he keeps telling himself, "I'm just not a study person. I never finish anything." He tries. He fails. He tries again. He fails again. And he blames willpower. He blames motivation. He blames everything. But the truth? He never changed the story he was telling himself. He never said, "I am becoming a disciplined student." He never voted for that identity with his daily actions. Now imagine the same kid, same grades, same struggles, but this time he changes the script. Every morning, he studies for just 15 minutes. Doesn't matter how he feels. He just does 15 minutes. Over and over. 1 week in, nothing much. 2 weeks, still rough. But 6 months later, he's someone who studies every day. Not because he had to force himself, but because that's who he became. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a 5K. The goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to get a good grade. The goal is to become a student who works hard. Who are you becoming right now? Lesson 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. All right, so we know habits are powerful. We know identity matters. But how do habits actually work inside your brain? Let me break it down with the science, but in a way that actually makes sense. Back in 1898, a psychologist named Thorndike ran an experiment with cats. He put them in boxes. The cats wanted out. They'd scratch, paw, explore, and eventually stumble on the lever that opened the door. Here's the wild part. The more times they did it, the faster they got. The first time, they took about 90 seconds. After 30 trials, they were out in 6 seconds flat. Why? Because their brains started to recognize the pattern. See lever, press lever, get reward, escape. Your brain works the same way. Every habit runs on a 4-step loop. Step 1, the cue. Something in your environment triggers your brain. Your phone buzzes. You see your friend smoking. You walk past the fridge. Step 2, the craving. A desire kicks in. You want to check your phone. You want a snack. You feel the urge. Step 3, the response. You actually do the habit. You pick up the phone, eat the chips, smoke the cigarette. Step 4, the reward. Your brain gets what it wanted. Now it associates the cue with the reward, and next time that cue appears, the craving comes faster. That's it. Cue, Craving. Response. Reward. This is running in your brain right now. Every moment of every day. Your brain is just automating solutions to recurring problems. And here's what's genius about this book. James takes this loop and gives you 4 laws to either build good habits or destroy bad ones. To build a good habit, make the cue obvious. Make the craving attractive. Make the response easy. Make the reward satisfying. To break a bad habit, flip it. Make the cue invisible. Make the craving unattractive. Make the response difficult. Make the reward unsatisfying. That's the whole framework. Everything else in this book is just a detailed guide for how to use these 4 laws. And this is where most people fail. They try to fix habits using willpower instead of systems. They white-knuckle it. They tell themselves, I just need to try harder. But willpower runs out. Systems don't. Don't rely on motivation. Build a system. Now let's go law by law. The first law. Make it obvious. Lesson 4. The man who didn't look right. There's this wild story about a paramedic woman at a family gathering. She walks in, takes one look at her father-in-law, and says, You need to go to the hospital right now. He felt completely fine. He was laughing, joking. But a few hours later, he was in surgery for a blocked artery that could have killed him. How did she know? She had seen so many heart patients over the years that her brain learned to recognize the pattern without her even consciously noticing it. The point? Our habits often run completely on autopilot. We don't see the cues. We don't question what we're doing. We just do it. That's the danger. And the power. James says the first step to changing any habit is awareness. You can't fix what you can't see. He suggests a simple tool called the habit scorecard. Just write down everything you do from the moment you wake up. Every single habit. Then label each one with a plus, minus, or equal sign. Good habit, bad habit, neutral. Here's what most people discover when they do this. There are habits running in their lives that they never consciously chose. They're just running. But here's the more powerful tool. Implementation intentions. Here's the science. In 2001, researchers studied 248 people trying to build exercise habits. One group just had motivation. Another group made a specific plan. I will exercise on this day, at this time, in this place. The motivated group? 35 to 38% followed through. The group with a specific plan? 91%. Same goal. Wildly different results. Just because one group got specific. The formula. I will do this behavior at this time in this location. Not, I'll study more. That's vague. That fails. I will study chemistry at 6 p.m. at my desk every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's an implementation intention. That works. And then there's habit stacking. This one is beautiful in its simplicity. You link a new habit to an existing one. The formula is, after I do my current habit, I will do my new habit. After I brush my teeth, I will read for 10 minutes. After I sit down for lunch, I will write 1 page. After I put on my shoes, I will do 10 push-ups. You're not creating a new habit from scratch. You're attaching it to something already built into your day, like a carabiner clicking onto a rope. The key lesson here is this. Design your environment so the cues for good habits are obvious, and the cues for bad habits are hidden. Put your guitar in the middle of the living room if you want to play every day. Leave your running shoes by the door. Put your phone in another room if you want to focus. Make the right choice the obvious choice. Lesson 5. The best way to start a new habit. Let me tell you a short story that makes this lesson hit different. Imagine 2 friends, Priya and Riya. Both want to get into better shape. Same goal. Same gym nearby. Priya says, I really need to start working out. I'll go when I feel motivated. She waits. She never quite feels motivated enough. 3 months later, she hasn't gone once. Riya says, I will go to the gym at 7 a.m. every Tuesday and Thursday, right after I drop my bag from school. She puts her gym clothes in a bag the night before. She doesn't even think about it in the morning. She just goes. 6 months later, Priya is still waiting for motivation. Riya has a habit. The difference wasn't discipline or willpower. The difference was a clear plan and a set cue. This is why vague goals die. Eat better. Be more productive. Stop wasting time. These are wishes, not plans. The moment you attach a specific time, place, and trigger to a habit, your brain stops arguing and starts doing. And the habit stacking principle goes even deeper. You can build entire chains. James describes mornings like this. When I wake up, I make coffee. After I make coffee, I meditate for 1 minute. After I meditate, I write down my 3 most important tasks for the day. After I write my tasks, I start the first one immediately. Each habit triggers the next. One good habit becomes the cue for the next. And before you know it, you have a morning routine, not because you scheduled every minute, but because you built a chain. Now, this is important. The cue needs to be specific. One mistake James made early on was saying, after lunch, I'll do 10 push-ups. But when exactly is lunch? Where? What counts as after? It was too vague. He failed. He changed it to, when I close my laptop at exactly noon, I will do 10 push-ups right next to my desk. Crystal clear. Worked every time. This is where most people fail when trying to build habits. Not motivation, not effort, just vagueness. Just not knowing exactly when and where the habit is supposed to happen. Take your biggest goal right now, whatever it is. Now ask yourself, when exactly will I work on it? Where? What will I do right before it to make it the cue? Write it down. Be specific. Your future self will thank you. Lesson 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. Here's something that will blow your mind. In Boston, a doctor named Thorndike decided to change the eating habits of thousands of hospital workers without telling anyone what to do, without any motivational talks, without a single lecture about health. How? She just moved the water. She added bottles of water next to every food station in the cafeteria. Soda was still available. She didn't remove it. She just made water more visible, more accessible. 3 months later, soda sales dropped by over 11%. Water sales jumped by 26%. Nobody changed their minds. Their environment changed, and their behavior followed. This is the secret most people never learn. You don't have to motivate yourself. You have to design your environment. James says, environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Think about it. Why do you eat snacks when they're on the counter, but not when they're in the cabinet? Why do you scroll social media when your phone is in your hand, but not when it's in another room? Why do you read more when there's a book on your pillow? You're not weak. Your environment is just designed poorly. Here's a life-changing exercise. Walk through your home, your room, your workspace. Ask this question about every single thing. Does this make my good habits easier, or does this make my bad habits easier? Your phone on the desk? That's a cue for distraction. Your textbooks buried under clothes? That's a cue to not study. Your running shoes hidden in the closet? That's a cue to skip the gym. Now flip it. Put your textbook on your pillow before school. Put your water bottle on your desk. Put your phone in a drawer. Same willpower. Completely different results. James also talks about context. Each location you spend time in becomes associated with certain behaviors. Your bed becomes a place to scroll. Your desk becomes a place to procrastinate. Your couch becomes a place to zone out. The solution? One space, one purpose. Train your brain to associate each location with one type of behavior. Study only at your desk. Never in bed. Read only in your reading chair. Never while watching TV. When you sit down in that space, your brain automatically shifts into the right mode. And here's a powerful bonus idea. If you're trying to build a new habit, try doing it in a new location. A new coffee shop. A corner of your room you don't usually use. A bench in the park. New environments break old patterns. New environments give new habits room to grow. Lesson 7. The secret to self-control. Okay, here's one of the most surprising discoveries in this entire book. And it's going to challenge everything you've been told about discipline. In 1971, during the Vietnam War, researchers discovered that over 15% of American soldiers stationed in Vietnam were heroin addicts. It was a massive crisis. The government panicked. They set up special programs to help these soldiers get clean before returning home. And here's what they found when the soldiers came back. 90% of them never relapsed. Read that again. 90% never used heroin again. Now contrast that with the normal world, where 90% of heroin users in rehab do relapse after returning home. What was different? The environment. In Vietnam, heroin was everywhere. It was accessible, cheap, and surrounded by stress, boredom, and fear. Every cue for using the drug was present constantly. Back in America, the cues were gone. The triggers disappeared. And without the trigger, the craving lost its power. This tells us something huge about self-control. The people with the best self-control are not the strongest. They're not the most disciplined. They're just the smartest about their environment. They spend less time in tempting situations. You will never out-willpower your environment long-term. It's too exhausting. Your willpower is like a phone battery. It drains. And when it's low, you do the thing you were trying to avoid. So instead of fighting the craving, cut it off at the source. Remove the cue. If you spend too much time on social media, delete the apps from your phone. Not because you can't download them again, but because that extra step creates enough friction to break the automatic habit. If you eat junk food when you're home alone, don't buy it at the store. If it's not in the house, you can't eat it. If you play video games instead of studying, unplug the console after every use and put it in your closet. This is the inversion of the first law. Instead of making good habits obvious, make bad habits invisible. And this is the real secret to self-control. Not white-knuckling your way through temptation. Not relying on motivation. Just making it harder to do the thing you don't want to do. Once a bad habit is encoded in your brain, the urge will always be there when the cue shows up. You can't erase it, but you can make the cue disappear. A craving with no cue has no power. The second law. Make it attractive. Lesson 8. How to make a habit irresistible. Here's a story about a college student in Dublin named Ronan Byrne. He loved watching Netflix. Genuinely loved it. But he also knew he needed to exercise more. So what did he do? He hacked his stationary bike and connected it to his laptop. Then he wrote code that would only let Netflix play if he was pedaling at a certain speed. Slow down. Netflix pauses. Keep pedaling. Keep watching. Genius, right? He bundled the thing he loved, watching shows, with the thing he needed, exercise. And now he actually looks forward to his workouts. This is what James calls temptation bundling. You pair an action you need to do with an action you already want to do. Only listen to your favorite podcast when you're at the gym. Only watch your favorite show while folding laundry. Only play your favorite playlist while studying. And the science behind why this works is fascinating. It comes down to a brain chemical called dopamine. Here's the wild truth about dopamine. It doesn't spike when you experience a reward. It spikes in anticipation of the reward. So when a gambling addict walks into a casino, their dopamine goes through the roof before they place a single bet. When a smoker sees a cigarette, dopamine floods in before they even light it. Desire is driven by anticipation, not fulfillment. This is why social media is so addictive. Every time you open the app, your brain lights up with dopamine. Not because you know what you'll see, but because you might see something amazing. The unpredictability is the hook. James says, make your habits attractive because it's the expectation of reward that drives action. So you need to attach positive feelings to your good habits. And you can do that through temptation bundling, through creating rituals, and through environment design. Think about your most important habit right now, the one you keep avoiding. How can you make it just a little bit more attractive? Can you pair it with something you love? Can you do it in a place that feels good? Can you celebrate it, even a tiny bit, right after you do it? You're not bribing yourself. You're training your brain to look forward to the habit. Lesson 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. I want to tell you about 3 young girls who became some of the greatest chess players in human history. Their names were Susan, Sophia, and Judith Polgar. Their father, Laszlo, had a wild theory. He believed that with the right environment and the right habits, any child could become a genius. So he and his wife decided to raise their daughters to be chess prodigies. From the very beginning, the house was filled with chess books. Chess pictures covered the walls. The girls played chess daily, competed in tournaments, and were praised for every improvement. Chess was just what their family did. Susan became a world champion at 14. Judith, the youngest, became the greatest female chess player of all time, a grandmaster at just 15 years old. But here's what blows me away. When you ask the sisters about their childhood, they don't describe it as grueling. They describe it as fun. They love chess. They chose chess. Why? Because it was normal to them. Their environment made chess attractive. And that's the lesson here. We imitate the people around us without even realizing it. James says we naturally copy the habits of 3 groups: those close to us, the many around us, and the powerful above us. When your closest friends all read books, you start reading. When your group all exercises, you start exercising. When everyone around you pulls all-nighters and sees it as hustle, you do it too. When your social circle thinks studying is for nerds, you stop studying. This is powerful and dangerous at the same time. James says one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Want to read more? Join a book club. Want to get fit? Train with people who are already fit. Want to learn coding? Join a community of builders. Want to improve your grades? Spend more time with students who actually care about learning. You don't rise above your environment. You become it. Now I know some of you are thinking, but I can't choose my family. I can't always choose who I'm around. That's real and fair, but you can choose who you spend the most time with. You can choose whose content you consume online. You can choose which communities you join, which Discord servers you're in, which people you text at 11 p.m. The people you spend time with are shaping your habits right now, every single day. So ask yourself, are the people around me pulling me up, or are they pulling me down? Are their habits the habits I want to have? There is no judgment here, just awareness. Because awareness is always the first step. Lesson 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. We made it to lesson 10, and this one might be the most practical lesson in the entire book. Let me set the scene. James Clear is sitting in an apartment in Istanbul, Turkey. He's surrounded by people who smoke. He's never smoked in his life, but he's curious. So he asks one of the Turks, "How did you start?" "Friends," the man said. "It always starts with friends. One friend smokes, then you try it." But here's what fascinated James even more. Half the people in that room had quit. One of them, Mike, swore he quit because of a book. A book that didn't preach at him or scare him with health warnings. This book had a different approach. It simply changed how smokers thought about smoking. The author told them, "You don't actually enjoy this. You think you do, but what you actually crave is relief from anxiety, connection with others, a sense of control. The cigarette is just the method your brain learned to chase those deeper needs. You think smoking makes you social. It doesn't. You can be social without it. You think smoking relieves stress. It doesn't. It actually destroys your nerves." And by the end of the book, smoking seemed completely pointless to readers. Not because they forced themselves to stop, but because they changed what smoking meant to them. This is the deep truth behind all habits. Every habit is just your brain's attempt to satisfy a deeper underlying motive. Some of those underlying motives are conserve energy, find love and connection, win social approval, reduce uncertainty, achieve status, avoid pain. Your brain doesn't actually crave Instagram. It craves connection and approval, and Instagram is the shortcut it found. Your brain doesn't actually crave junk food. It craves comfort and relief from stress, and chips were the fastest solution it discovered. Your brain doesn't actually crave procrastination. It craves safety from failure, and scrolling feels safer than starting. Once you understand what your habit is really trying to do for you, once you understand the underlying motive, you can find a better way to meet that same need. Feel anxious before an exam? Your brain wants to reduce uncertainty. Instead of scrolling your phone, try 5 minutes of deep breathing. Same need. Healthier solution. Feel lonely and open social media? Your brain wants connection. Text a friend instead. Same need. Deeper reward. And James gives one more incredible tool here, reframing. Instead of saying, "I have to study," say, "I get to study." Instead of "I have to go to the gym," say, "I get to build my body." Instead of "I have to wake up early," say, "I get to own my morning." It's not toxic positivity. It's a genuine shift in how you interpret the situation. Both versions are true, but one version drains you and one version fuels you. And finally, create a motivation ritual. Pick something you love. A song, a playlist, a smell, a movement. Do it right before you start your habit every single time. After enough repetitions, that ritual becomes a cue that tells your brain, it's time. Let's go. Ed Lattimore, a professional boxer, discovered this by accident. He put on his headphones while writing, even without music sometimes, and his concentration soared. Why? Because over time, the headphones became his brain's signal for deep focus. Your rituals become your cues. Your cues become your habits. Your habits become your life. So choose your rituals carefully. Let me bring it all home. You've just learned 10 lessons from one of the most important books ever written about human behavior. And here's what all of it boils down to. You don't decide your future. You decide your habits. And your habits decide your future. James Clear says it perfectly. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals are just wishes without systems. Systems are habits. And habits are what you do when you stop deciding. Before you go, drop in the comments right now. What is the one habit you're committing to starting this week? It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Because the people who comment, the people who actually write it down and declare it, are significantly more likely to follow through. That's psychology. That's science. So write it. One habit. Below. Right now. Part 2 of this book is coming soon, where we go deeper into the remaining laws, making habits easy, making them satisfying, and the advanced tactics James uses to push you from good to truly great. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, because the best is still ahead. And if you like this one, you should definitely check out our audiobook on the psychology of money by Morgan Housel, a book that completely changes the way you think about wealth, success, spending, and freedom. You'll understand why some people earn millions and still stay broke, while others with ordinary incomes quietly build extraordinary lives. See you there in part 2.